Behind the scenes, while Hollywood focused on his grit and gunslingers, the Duke was quietly building a financial empire. When he died in 1979, the real shock wasn't just the loss of a legend. It was the size of the fortune he left behind. Properties across the country, millions in assets, and passive income that kept flowing long after the cameras stopped rolling. So how rich was John Wayne really? How much did he earn from his movies, and how did his hidden wealth turn his family into lifelong beneficiaries of his success? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the money, the properties, and the fortune John Wayne left behind, because his greatest legacy wasn't just on screen. It was in the empire he quietly built. Before John Wayne became a Hollywood icon, he was simply Marion Robert Morrison, a small-town boy born in 1907 in Winterset, Iowa. He grew up in a hard-working family that lived modestly, where perseverance mattered more than comfort. Life wasn't easy, but the Morrisons stayed close and did what they could to get by. When Marion was still young, the family relocated to Glendale, California, a move that quietly set the course for everything that followed. In Glendale, Marion picked up the nickname that would follow him for life: Duke. It came from his constant companion, an Airedale Terrier also named Duke. The two were inseparable, and people began calling the boy Little Duke and the dog Big Duke. Over time, the nickname stuck, and Marion embraced it as part of his identity. As he grew older, Duke was known for his strength, energy, and athleticism. In high school, he became a standout football player, earning a scholarship to the University of Southern California. For a while, his future seemed firmly tied to sports. He dreamed of success on the field and believed football would be his path forward. Then, a serious injury during a game abruptly ended his athletic career. The setback was devastating. Years of effort disappeared in a single moment, forcing him to rethink his future. Rather than giving up, Duke adapted. In 1926, a former football coach helped him secure a job at Fox Film Corporation. It was far from glamorous. He worked behind the scenes, moving props and assisting wherever needed. But the studio gave him exposure to an entirely new world. He began landing small, uncredited roles as an extra in silent films, slowly getting comfortable in front of the camera. During this period, he crossed paths with director John Ford, a meeting that would prove pivotal. Ford recognized something in the young man's presence and confidence, and the two formed a lasting professional bond. One of Duke's earliest on-screen appearances came in Mother Macri in 1928, where he briefly herded geese, a small, almost humorous role, but an important first step. By 1930, his career took another turn when director Raoul Walsh suggested a new name: John Wayne. The studio believed Marion Morrison lacked the toughness needed for Western films, while John Wayne sounded bold and commanding. That same year, Wayne landed his first leading role in The Big Trail. Although the film was ambitious, technical limitations prevented it from reaching many theaters, and it failed at the box office. The setback slowed his rise, but it didn't stop him. Throughout the 1930s, Wayne appeared in dozens of low-budget westerns. During these years, John Wayne quietly began shaping the screen persona that would define him for decades. He was often cast as men of courage and integrity, figures who stood firm, spoke plainly, and carried themselves with an unshakable calm. His upright posture, measured movements, and distinctive voice became inseparable from his image. Audiences sensed authenticity in his performances. His characters felt lived in rather than performed. Bit by bit, these roles helped him refine the style that would later make him iconic. At the same time, Wayne was learning far more than how to act. He studied the mechanics of filmmaking itself, watching directors work, observing how scenes were constructed, and noticing how power and decision-making flowed on set. He paid attention to details many actors ignored, and that behind-the-scenes education would serve him well as his career advanced. The turning point came in 1939. John Ford, a director who had known Wayne for years and believed in his potential, finally gave him a real opportunity by casting him as the Ringo Kid in Stagecoach. Unlike the low-budget westerns Wayne had been making, Stagecoach was a prestige production with sharp writing, strong direction, and a tightly woven story. Wayne's performance was confident and commanding, and audiences immediately took notice. The film was a major success, and almost overnight, John Wayne became a star. After years of struggle and obscurity, his persistence paid off. The slow, grinding climb suddenly made sense, and his career entered an entirely new phase. From that moment on, his name carried weight, and the tough cowboy image he had carefully built would follow him for the rest of his life. Following Stagecoach, Wayne entered what would become the golden era of his career. The film earned 7 Academy Award nominations and marked the beginning of a long and influential partnership with John Ford. Between 1939 and 1963, the two collaborated on multiple films, each one helping Wayne grow as an actor. In The Long Voyage Home, he revealed a deeper, more introspective side, proving he was more than just a strong silhouette on horseback. In the late 1940s and 1950s, Wayne expanded into war films. His role in Sands of Iwo Jima in 1949 earned him his first Academy Award nomination and demonstrated that he could carry serious, emotionally grounded roles beyond the Western genre. Films like She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, Rio Grande, and The Searchers allowed him to explore moral conflict, regret, and inner struggle, adding layers to his familiar screen persona. Wayne also used film as a platform for his personal convictions. Deeply patriotic and outspoken, he poured years of effort into directing and starring in The Alamo in 1960, a project driven as much by belief as by ambition. Later, The Green Berets became one of the first major Hollywood films to openly support the Vietnam War, controversial but deeply meaningful to him. In 1969, his career reached another milestone when he won an Academy Award for True Grit. Playing the one-eyed, rough-edged Marshal Rooster Cogburn, Wayne departed from his usual noble archetype. The role allowed him to be gruff, humorous, weary, and fearless all at once. Audiences embraced it, and the Oscar confirmed what many had long believed. John Wayne was a genuinely skilled actor, not just a symbol. Yet behind the success, trouble loomed. Despite earning millions, Wayne made serious financial mistakes. The first came in the 1950s when he placed complete trust in a business manager named Bo Roos. Wayne allowed him full control over his finances, believing he was in capable hands. Instead, Roos persuaded him to invest in a fraudulent deal in Panama. Wayne lost $700,000 outright, followed by another $1 million tied to related ventures. For a man at the top of Hollywood, the loss was staggering. He was nearly wiped out. Worse still, history repeated itself. Later, Wayne entrusted his finances to his son-in-law, Donald LaCava. Family loyalty clouded his judgment, and once again, poor decisions followed. Wayne only realized how serious the situation had become when unpaid bills began to surface. The moment that finally shocked him came with an overdue $3,500 bill from Saks Fifth Avenue. After those painful financial setbacks, John Wayne made a decisive change. He cut ties with the people who had led him into trouble and stopped handing over total control of his money to anyone else. From that point on, he took charge himself. He studied contracts, asked hard questions, and paid close attention to every detail. He focused on projects that offered solid pay and long-term stability, steering clear of risky ventures. Slowly and methodically, he rebuilt what he had lost. Each mistake made him sharper, more disciplined. In time, those hard-earned lessons helped him create lasting wealth, not only for himself, but for the generations of his family that would follow. While his financial footing grew stronger, another battle was quietly unfolding. By the mid-1950s, John Wayne's health was already under threat, though few knew it at the time. In 1956, Wayne worked on The Conqueror, filmed in St. George, Utah. The desert location seemed perfect for the story, but there was a hidden danger. Nearby, the U.S. government had conducted nuclear weapons tests, and radioactive fallout had settled over the area. Cast and crew spent weeks breathing contaminated dust, unaware of the risks. Years later, the consequences became impossible to ignore. Of the 220 people involved in the production, 91 were eventually diagnosed with cancer and 46 died from the disease. The numbers were alarmingly high, and many believed the exposure played a role. John Wayne was among those suspected to have been affected. In 1964, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. A lifelong heavy smoker, Wayne faced an aggressive surgery that removed one of his lungs and several ribs. Doctors were unsure he would survive, but he did. Defying expectations, he returned to work, continuing to act and remain publicly active despite the physical toll. Years later, he was struck again, this time with stomach cancer. Even then, Wayne refused to retreat quietly. He began speaking openly about cancer, urging people to seek medical care and pay attention to their health. His private struggle became a public warning meant to help others. His final film, The Shootist, 1976, felt painfully symbolic. Wayne played an aging gunfighter dying of cancer, a role that mirrored his real life. The performance was restrained and deeply moving, and many fans saw it as his cinematic farewell. John Wayne died on June 11, 1979, at the age of 72. He had lived with illness for years, yet continued working, staying strong for his family and his audience. He faced cancer with the same resolve he brought to his screen roles, keeping much of his suffering private. When he passed, Wayne left behind far more than a film legacy. His estate was valued at approximately $7 million at the time, equivalent to about $25 million today. He owned multiple properties, including land in Arizona and along the Puget Sound in Washington, assets built through decades of careful rebuilding. His will was thoughtfully structured to ensure his family's security. He had 7 children from 2 marriages, and each was included in the estate. Beyond financial inheritances, some received personal items that carried deep sentimental value. Wayne also provided for his first wife, establishing a trust that paid her a regular income, an acknowledgement of their shared past. 2 longtime secretaries, women who had worked closely with him for years, were each left substantial gifts in recognition of their loyalty. One name, however, was notably absent. His third wife, Pilar Palete, was excluded entirely. Years earlier, they had signed a legal settlement that resolved all financial matters, and by the time of Wayne's death, they were long separated. As a result, she had no claim to his estate. One clause in John Wayne's will caught many people off guard. He made it unmistakably clear that Donald LaCava, the husband of his eldest daughter, would never benefit from his estate. Years earlier, LaCava's poor financial decisions had cost Wayne dearly, and that betrayal was not something he forgot. To protect his family, Wayne included a firm provision stating that LaCava could not access his daughter's inheritance under any circumstances, even if she were to pass away. Her share would bypass him entirely and go directly to her children or to beneficiaries she personally named. It was a calculated decision, rooted in hard-earned lessons about trust and money. Taken as a whole, John Wayne's will read like a final declaration of character. It protected his children, rewarded loyalty, and deliberately excluded those he no longer trusted. The document reflected the same discipline, strength, and foresight that defined his public image. It was his last act of control, a way to ensure that what he built would not be squandered or misused. Wayne wasn't just leaving money behind, he was safeguarding a future. John Wayne left more than a catalog of classic films. He left behind a structure that allowed his family to thrive long after his death. His careful planning provided stability for his children and grandchildren, turning personal success into generational security. He had 7 children, and each played a role, visible or quiet, in preserving his memory. His eldest son, Michael Wayne, followed closely in his father's footsteps behind the camera, becoming a respected film producer and a guardian of the Wayne name in Hollywood. Marry Tony. Wayne lived more privately but remained deeply connected to the family. Patrick Wayne built a long acting career of his own, proudly embracing the legacy he inherited. Melinda Wayne took on a more administrative role, helping manage family affairs and keeping everything running smoothly. Isa Wayne became one of the family's most outspoken voices, sharing stories about her father and ensuring new generations understood who he was beyond the myth. John Ethan Wayne worked to protect and expand the Wayne brand, acting early in life before focusing on preserving his father's image and values. Marissa Wayne, the youngest, stayed closely involved in family efforts and supported the broader mission to honor their father's legacy. Wayne also ensured long-term financial stability through a trust established for his first wife, Josephine, which provided her with monthly payments for the rest of her life. After her passing, those funds were distributed to their children, reinforcing the family's financial foundation. The structure of the trust ensured continuity and protected the estate from instability. His grandchildren benefited as well. Some became directly involved in managing the estate, overseeing licensing decisions, and safeguarding the Wayne name. Merchandise bearing John Wayne's image continues to sell worldwide, and the estate still generates income through carefully managed partnerships. What began as a personal legacy evolved into a shared responsibility, one the family took seriously. Though John Wayne has been gone for decades, his presence remains powerful. His family now oversees John Wayne Enterprises, a company dedicated to preserving his image, values, and cultural impact. Every product bearing his name is carefully vetted to reflect quality, durability, and integrity, principles Wayne lived by. The brand focuses on timeless appeal rather than trends. One of its most successful ventures is Wayne Family Estate, a premium wine label that has become a cornerstone of the business. The company has also partnered with brands like Fire and Flavor, producing grilling tools and food products that echo the rugged outdoor lifestyle Wayne embodied. Collectors and fans can purchase books, apparel, artwork, and memorabilia tied to his films and persona. These items don't just sell nostalgia, they tell a story. Through publishing partnerships, the family continues to release biographies and retrospectives that introduce John Wayne to new audiences. Perhaps the most meaningful extension of his legacy is the John Wayne Cancer Foundation. Created in response to Wayne's own battles with cancer, the foundation funds research, supports patients, and promotes early detection. It reflects a deeply personal mission, turning loss into purpose. Today, John Wayne Enterprises is more than a business. It is a living continuation of his values, run by a family determined to protect what he stood for. Through careful stewardship, philanthropy, and storytelling, the Wayne family has transformed a legendary name into a lasting empire, one built not just on fame, but on responsibility and respect.